Welcome to LogisticsSales.com, where today we're going to be talking about more out there than just a job. So stick around and let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of LogisticsSales.com, where today is our final episode on navigating job opportunities. And today we're going to be talking about that there's more out there than just a job. I'm your host, Dean, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Damon and Gil.
Well, hello.
Hi, guys.
So, like we were saying, today is going to be our last episode on this job opportunity segment, and we're going to talk about the opportunity of not necessarily going down the traditional employee-employer route. You can find other ways to build equity and create your own business, or buying or acquiring other established businesses. So at LogisticsSales.com, we want to help get you guys to think outside the box and look at other lucrative opportunities than working just that regular 9 to 5. What we're hoping to teach you today is how to create other opportunities that already exist out there to build the life you want for you and your future. So I'm really looking forward today. There's so many different things we can touch on. And I guess to start off, we're going to talk about goals for this platform.
100%. Yeah. So let's talk about the goal that we have at LogisticsSales.com. And I kind of want to go over this quote with you guys, but really try to hone in on what we're trying to do here. But it goes like this: to educate and inform individuals about business opportunities to achieve their financial goals while connecting them with the small to medium-sized businesses to create mutually beneficial partnerships that drive business growth and increase earnings for both. So this is our goal here with our platform. And what that really means is that what we're trying to really do is connect you, the individual, to start creating opportunities. And a lot of those opportunities are within small to medium-sized businesses that are going to give a lot of people the start that they need, teach them the skill sets and opportunities that can help leapfrog the individual, which is you, and as well as the business as well. So this is what we want to do is make that connection and bridge the gap between these two. So a lot of times the jobs aren't posted on the typical job boards. And a lot of times these jobs don't even exist because people really don't have the know-how, because they're too busy operating their businesses to really understand, okay, for example, like, how do I, as a small to medium-sized business, afford $100,000 salary to a sales personnel? So a lot of times employers are going to think, I don't have that type of money. I'm barely surviving myself. How do I hire somebody? And for those employers to realize that, hey, there's individuals that may want to build these win-win situations with you and career opportunities with you. Maybe there is that salesman that is, value-wise is worth $100,000, but maybe he's willing to come in at a discounted rate and say, okay, hey, you know what? I see the opportunity in your business. So this is what we talk about, all the different industries. And so if there's an industry that relates to you as an individual, and you could talk to that corporation and say, hey, you know what? Whether it's a small business or anybody in your area, anybody abroad even, but if you have the expertise in anything and you want to kind of expand your career sets and expand your income levels, then you can talk to that business and say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to come in at a discounted level. I do have, X amount of years of experience doing this type of job. Maybe I can come in and come in at the reduced rate, and we can work out some sort of commission structure. Maybe we can work out some sort of bonus structure. Maybe there's an equity stake at play here. And so many people have been able to do this, and larger corporations are doing this anyways. So when we look at whether it's real estate companies will start building their own teams out. They'll start doing different aspects of it. When you're working at like a law firm, if you're doing really well as a lawyer and then as an employee, they'll actually bring you into partnership. So you'll see like law firms will start changing their names when they have different last names at the end of their titles, right, at the company names. You'll see this also with accounting firms, right? So a lot of companies, when you're at a different accounting firm and the accountant starts bringing in so much business, at a certain point, they just say it's cheaper to kind of bring this person into equity as opposed to trying to pay them as an individual. So it's a benefit for even the corporation. But then what's causing that what's causing the corporation to partner with these people or individuals such as yourself. It's when they see value in the person. So this is what we talk about in saying, can you build a value proposition? And this is where you want to have that goal. Is your goal just to be an employee? And we kind of relate this to, would you rather be working 10 years at a restaurant and not see any upside from that restaurant? Would you rather put 10, 15 years in your life at a car dealership and not see the upside of maybe owning a potential of that dealership by the time you leave as a career possibility? But there's so many things that you can kind of create for yourself that could be long-term, as opposed to just, being in a corporation where you're just doing it as a job and as a paycheck. But instead, how can you build something for your future?
Right, and I think that brings us right to our worksheet for today. You can download the worksheet and follow along with these questions as we're going through today's episode. It'd be really helpful for you as you help to create that roadmap for you in which direction you want to go. So with question number 1, it's between having a traditional job or becoming an entrepreneur. Which direction do you see yourself following and why? So again, you can fill this out after the episode, after we cover everything that we're going to go over today, but take some time and really put some thought in it to figure out, do I want to work the 9-to-5 job and help build somebody else's dream and have an opportunity because there's perhaps equity opportunities and commission opportunities and even salary opportunities that are worth your while for the life that you want to live? Or are you considering perhaps the entrepreneurial route and what's involved in that? Obviously, going that route might require a lot more legwork because you're working for, you're building your own dream. But again, going through all of that takes us to question number 2, which is based on your answer above, what skill sets will you leverage to create more value for yourself in your role?
We were talking about this maybe right before we even started the episode. And a lot of times when you're working at a location, you typically know if you're a person of value, right? How do you know that? It's because people are offering you opportunities. People recognize the skill sets that you have and say, hey, you know what? You're really good at maybe communication. You'd be great at sales, right? People are typically giving you some sort of feedback in your life to say, hey, you know what? Like Dean, you're an exceptional person at building relationships. Or, hey, maybe you're very athletic, like maybe sports is a career for you. But people are typically going to give you that sort of feedback in your lifetime. And it's important just to kind of listen, keep that ear open, right? I know for myself, every time people had the opportunity to go for lunch with me, they would talk about business opportunities. And when I was working even at different employers, a lot of times I was having so much success at these companies I was working at that people were always trying to pull me away. Right? Not the recruiter types, right? So again, recruiter types are a little bit different, but when you actually see like people wanting to open up businesses, people leveraging you for information, understand that that's value that you have, right? So if you're working somewhere and people are seeing that you're starting to get successful, people are gonna be like, hey Dean, what are you doing differently? Hey Gail, how are you earning those high commissions? What is it that you're doing? Can you teach it to me? Right? So people are gonna be leveraging information from you. And you'll notice this, whether it's people, this happens with you guys all the time. People will take you for lunch dates. They're like, hey, you know what? Let me buy you lunch, right? Why do they want to buy you lunch? They want to learn about what you're doing.
And I hope watching this episode, everyone understands too, that with a lot of the different skills, combined with the 3 of us, we're here to help kind of offer those for you. And we call it, I guess, like the Coles Notes. We want you to know that there is a shortcut. You could go it on your own. And sometimes there's, peaks and valleys, as there is with everything. But if there's certain directives or some, skills that we've picked up along the way, we want to pass those on to you to help you get to where you want to go in hopefully a smaller amount of time, because time is a factor, and it will always be a factor because things don't ever happen overnight. And more importantly, things don't happen without hard work. So what kind of work are you prepared to put in to get to where you want to go?
Yeah. And when it comes to putting in that hard work, we've talked about skills quite a bit over the last several episodes, and you may not already have the skills that you may necessarily need in order to be successful. But by joining us on these episodes, we're hoping to teach you a lot of those skills and giving you some good foundation to go out and build a business or to become an entrepreneur or to build equity within a company. And so hopefully you'll be able to take these tools and down the line, build an opportunity for yourself. Let us be your mentors, let us be your guides, and also branch out. out and find people that inspire you, that intrigue you, that build creativity in you and give you good ideas, because those are going to be so important for building a brand for yourself that is uniquely you.
It's kind of going back to like the why. Why are we doing this program? It's because we've seen so many people struggle when it comes to unaffordability. You know, if you're making an income today, 20 years later, that same income might not do enough for you. You know, it may not get you to the dreams and aspirations that you had when you started that job or career that you thought was going to, you know, pay you what you want, give you that freedom lifestyle that you were looking for. And this is what we really want to prevent, and start saying, you know, start thinking about that a little bit earlier. Is what you're doing today, what's that going to do for you 15, 20 years down the road? Is that going to sustain the lifestyle that you want to sustain? Is that going to give you the freedom and flexibility that you really want to create in life? But you do have that opportunity today, you know, and today is that moment where, you know, we want to kind of put that into your mind and say, what am I working for? Why am I doing the job that I'm doing today? Is it just a pastime? Or can I start building different revenue streams that's going to help me in long term, you know, whether it's for the service work that I want to do and start being able to give back, whether it's just affordability so that when inflation goes skyrocketing, you know, I could afford to have that flexibility. And I know for me, creating that work structure or creating these structures for those passive income streams, or even direct income streams, right? And because a lot of it is based on the hard work that we put in. But you know, when we go through those tough times in life, whether it's a sickness, whether it's a family member that we have to assist or help, or we need to take time off work to go assist somebody, how do we do that without feeling the reprimand of being financially depleted? And how can we move forward and know that, you know what, even if I don't show up today, that at least someone's there to do that work for me? And so this is why we teach, like, you know, again, it's first starts off with you, right? You creating enough value and creating that revenue, you know, just to sustain yourself. But once you sustain yourself, it's like, how can I do that for other people around me, right? How can I build out a team? How can I do this in a manner where it's not only me benefiting, but I can benefit, again, whether it's build on my own companies, expand the companies that I'm working with, whether it's the small to medium-sized businesses, watching them grow, and that becomes part of the reward. But as they grow, you grow, right? And building these teams out where, again, people didn't see the opportunities, but you did. And so that's why a lot of these positions don't really exist right now. It's because we're creating them. And once we create these partnerships, we can show people that, hey, this works. And it's already tested and proven. People are doing this all around the world. It's just a matter of, you know, have you been exposed to it yet? And that's why this platform is not only for you as an individual, it's also for the businesses, right? If you're a business owner and you own a small to medium-sized business and you just don't know how to get that thing leveraged and how to get that business off the ground and started and really producing for what you want to accomplish. And sometimes, like, the goal is just not for yourself. And so, you know, how do I have a business that I'm proud of? How do I have a business that can sustain long-term if I'm not around? And, you know, this is the same concern like a lot of business owners have. And so if you understand like what their concerns are and what they really truly desire, and everybody wants to build that brand name. Everybody wants to have amazing employees to work with. Everybody wants to have that amazing business partner that elevates them to that next level. You know, can you be that person? And if you want that person, can I be the business that provides that opportunity to the community that's around me? Right? So there's, again, so many opportunities that we just want to expose you to that, again, there's so many different ways to show value. And so what we want to do is kind of go over some of those value points that you can bring to a business to help them scale to that next level.
So now we know that when you look at an entrepreneurial opportunity, it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, especially depending on where we're coming from. You know, you may not have the financial backing or the education backing or some of the resources needed to start a company from scratch. So we actually did kind of want to go into some of the opportunities that are out there that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg, that aren't going to require you to go to the bank and get, you know, $100,000 bank loan. These are things that are actually attainable for the everyday person, as long as you're willing to go out there and put out the work. So I'm going to pass it over to Damon to get us started on this.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gail. So we'll kind of go into some of the value propositions that you could provide, or some of the opportunities that you can kind of create without having to kind of break the bank here. And some of that is just leveraging the skill sets that you have. So if you say, okay, well, what skill set can I offer my employer? Is it directly on the sales side? And sales is obviously the biggest one, because sales generating, it's revenue generating. So you're showing dollar signs to a company right away. So if you could make that commitment of saying, okay, hey, if I, set that revenue target to double your company, can I get a percentage of the company if I'm able to double it, right? Secondly, you can look at commission structures. So we talked about this and brushed on this briefly as well. Commission structures is where, again, you can come in on a reduced wage, so you can make it affordable for someone to hire you, maybe just to cover your costs, or even coming in at free if you want to, and then just leverage and build.
We've even seen some really incredible sales reps that have come in on zero salary based and then have a very good commission, because that's a great opportunity. Their income that they generate is directly correlating to whatever they can produce for an organization, which is a great way. If you're a go-getter and you're good at sales, or you are trying to be really good at sales, it's a great way to motivate you to work your little booty off and bring in the finances for those companies and then reap the rewards of all your hard work.
Yep. And even if you're not good at sales, the next one is, can I provide labor or consulting services to somebody? Because sometimes people like the operational side better than the actual sales side, and we get this a lot too. But the operational side, which is again the heavy lifting, can you do the background work to get somebody into an elevated position? And you see this a lot in tech startups. A lot of people have abilities to build databases or really good at design work, but there's a different skill set that they'll have that they could be able to leverage and help that application become very successful. And it doesn't have to be on the front end of it, but it's what can you do on the back end to make the front end successful. So there's those type of opportunities that exist. The next one is marketing. Sales is always combined with a marketing component. If you're not directly good at communicating, maybe you're very good at displaying it visually or being creative. Maybe you're really good at social media marketing. But if you're a visionary that way, sell that vision to somebody. And set some targets out there for that as well. There's ways to explode a company based on social demand, and leverage that with companies. If you like photography, offer to get your camera and go take some photos of the businesses that are in your community. See what you can do for them. Work on a percentage of online commissions that they might not be able to receive right now, or they haven't explored that opportunity themselves because they're too busy again in their business. But all these things are easily doable, even with a cell phone, right? And I know we do this all the time too, but how can you get creative with the different angles on your phone? How can you take a small online course for maybe a few dollars to learn exponential skills that can pay you back in multiples from different businesses that are just within your community, or anyone that's even getting started? Volunteer your services just to build that resume for yourself. And the last one is just, implementing technology. Sometimes business owners have been so involved in their business, they don't know what new tech exists to accelerate that business to that next level too. We see this with design work, or, building homes, or interior decorating. Everything is coming into like the online design field of showing you what you're going to receive before you actually receive it. So a lot of these businesses exist, and these are all ways that you can leverage to get those opportunities that you're looking for. And a lot of times you're going to notice that as soon as you start visiting some of these locations, businesses, whether they're small to medium size, you're not going to see these opportunities being posted, because they don't know about them, and they're too busy to put the jobs out there. So a lot of these jobs, you're going to have to go out and try to find yourself.
And that brings us to our third question in the questionnaire, or the worksheet, sorry, is if you're looking to go the entrepreneurial route, what methods will you use to create those opportunities, to create untapped potential for yourself, and also creating a benefit for the company you'll be working with? We use the example of consulting, commissions, or shares, equity in the company. Now, also, there's definitely some pros and cons going into this way, whether you're choosing, one way or the other. So I'll pass it over to Gail for working a job and career.
Thank
Tell
you,
me
Dean.
about the pros and cons.
Thanks, Dean. Now, I think this one's really important because everybody's going to have their own self-reflection on where they fit better on the spectrum. Some people, they like the 9 to 5. They like being an employee. They like coming in and knowing what they have to do and what their job entails. And some people like the adventure and the opportunity and the struggle and all of it that comes in with the entrepreneurial role. But you have to look at them both and say, okay, which one suits my lifestyle, the person that I want to be, and who I want to grow into. So there is actually on the worksheet, you'll find that there's 2 tables, one for being an employee and one for being an entrepreneur, where you can start listing pros and cons based off of your personal preference for each of those opportunities. So you can either follow along or do this later. But definitely we encourage you to go through it and figure out, if you were to be an employee, what would be the pros, what would be the cons, and vice versa for entrepreneur. But we did have some for you to make it a little bit easier. So for being a employee working a job or a career at an organization as somebody who works for them, the pros are things like stability and predictability. You know when you're working, you know where you're working, you know how long you're working for. It's very clear cut. It gives you, stability in your home life as well, so you can have a nice work-life balance, which leads me to number 2, which is work-life balance. Having that defined work hours, having paid time off, fewer responsibilities outside of work, all of that will tie into having a nice balance between what you're doing in the workforce and what you're doing at home. It's also less risky. You find that with being an employer, there is less financial risk because you are not the person who's paying the bills. You're not the one signing checks. You're not the one who's paying employees. You're just coming there. You're doing your work. You go home at the end of the day, and once a month, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, you get a paycheck, right? So it gives you less of a risk compared to starting your own business. You also have defined roles and responsibilities. Again, it gives you a very clear direction of what you're responsible for. There is no, okay, who's doing this, who's doing that. It's you have an idea of what your job is. Of course, we totally encourage everyone to expand off of that. What else can you add to an organization? But the expectation is already set out. It's already outlined there for you to make it very, very easy. The next one is social environment. It gives you an opportunity to interact and collaborate with colleagues, to work with people, to have that more of a team dynamic, which you don't always get in the entrepreneurial side. Sometimes you're working alone when you're an entrepreneur. Sometimes you only have 1 or 2 people, maybe they're cross country. Typically, though, in a company setting, you get to work with them. Like, I get to work with Dean and Damon sitting right here, which you do get those in all types of opportunities, but you might not get that close connection or that daily interaction that you're looking for if you're an entrepreneur. So it's something to keep in mind. Also, professional development. You get to access training, you have mentors, you have career advancement within that organization. There are opportunities for advancement within the companies if you're at the right company that can help, skyrocket your own career, but you have to be smart about who you're talking to. Who are you learning from? Are you seeking out mentors in the companies that you work for?
And so a little disclaimer here. I know even though we're talking about like the pros of being an employee, there's a lot of people that work as employees, but the expectations set by their employers is just as high as being the boss at the company or being the owner of that company. So, if you're already feeling the pressures of, I'm having to work like an owner, then ask for the equity. This is the whole thing. But at the same time, we're not saying that everybody kind of has, that work-life balance. Not everybody has, defined roles and responsibilities, but, we're just kind of generalizing it here just for sake of conversation.
Exactly. And then the last one for pros that we had for employee route is having employee benefits. And this typically that and financial security are the 2 biggest factors for becoming an employee and going down that route. But knowing that you have things like health insurance, that you have life insurance, retirement plans, and other things like dental and medical that are provided in a lot of organizations are massive factors, especially for people who maybe have families or kids and want to make sure that they are taken care of. It can be a huge, huge factor in deciding on which route to take. But there are some cons. So if you are an employee, things like having limited control over your own career, over your own position, are definitely things that can play into your job satisfaction, how you feel in that role, how you feel in your own personal life. It gives you less autonomy and you don't have as much decision-making power in those types of roles, you normally have to go to someone and say, hey, I have an idea. What do you think? Can we go forward with it? Versus being an entrepreneur, when you have that idea, you can run with it and you can really just hit the ground running. So it does give you a little bit of a change there. Income ceiling is the next one, which is the potential earning cap that most roles or opportunities do have on them. When you are an employee, organizations can really only afford to pay you so much. So most position, whether you're an electrician or you're a salesperson, you'll find that there is typically an industry cap. It's what do the best paying salespeople or the best paying tradesmen get paid in that industry or field. When you are an employee, that cap, it does exist in most situations, not all. That's the caveat. Not all of them have that, but keep that in mind. If for example, an accountant, the top earning potential for the best accountants in your area is $150,000 a year, and you want to make $200,000, then it may not be the right opportunity for you because you may never be able to get there because of that cap. The next one is job security. So there is a risk of things like layoffs, of terminations, downsizing, company closures. You have no control over what the company decides to do on a corporate level unless you're part of that executive team. So keep in mind, there are situations, circumstances that may play into not what you're doing as an employee, that they just have to make decisions on an executive level, and it might impact you.
And even at executive level, you're not always safe.
That's very true.
We've seen those happen as well.
Yeah, there's that saying, the closer you get to the sun, the easier it is to get burned. So, sometimes when you climb to the top, it also opens you up for a little bit of scrutiny if you're not doing the job that you've been paid and told that you were going to do.
Yes, but none of you are, because you guys are doing great. We think you're awesome. The next one, though, comes down to office politics. Now, for any of you who've worked an office job, I'm sure you've seen it at some point. There can sometimes be drama or people who don't get along. When you work at an organization, you don't get a choice of who your coworkers are. I mean, you may be able to talk to someone or have a conversation, but who gets hired, who gets hired? You have to work with them. You have to figure out how to interact with them on a day-to-day basis. So that can become quite monotonous if it's not somebody that you get along with or that gets along with you. Which leads me into number 5, which is monotony. When you work a role that doesn't change, it's the same thing day after day after day. The repetition can get really tiresome very fast. But if you are looking to grow in your career and you've had those conversations, there may be that room for advancement, and you might be taking those steps to continue to develop in your own role. And the last one is dependency on your employer. You are relying on the success of that company. If that company doesn't turn out the way it's supposed to, if they have to downsize, if they have to close their doors, all of this is going to be falling back basically on you. The success of the company is going to reflect on your own personal success, and unfortunately may not even have anything to do with your work ethic. It just is part of the game.
And we've seen this with major employers, whether you're unionized or non-unionized, but we've seen it where people have lost their entire retirement savings. That, some of these perks that you do get working as an employee, nothing is really guaranteed. Even if you think you have this amazing retirement package coming up, if the company doesn't survive, then, we've seen those kind of go out the window as well.
Yeah. And with today's episode too, what we're trying to do is just have you kind of think of all potential avenues. So we're not suggesting one way is better than the other. Some people might want to consider the traditional salaried route where it's guaranteed, and it might be an opportunity where the salary is so lucrative that it's exactly where you want, where you see the quality of life that you want to have. And then others brings you over to the other side, which is the entrepreneur route, which brings me to the pros and cons of that choice. But again, this still refers back to the worksheet with number 4. And, some of the pros of being an entrepreneur, obviously autonomy. With you have your own business, you have full control over the business decisions and its direction. Granted, in some cases, you'll have partners, and it's a collaboration just like it would be in a traditional employment where you have to work with your partners and still with your employees. If you want to truly succeed, there's a lot of things that are, crossover between both anyways, because the recipe for success, whether it's traditional or entrepreneurial, are pretty much the same. You still have to be team-oriented. You still have to be hardworking, and especially with, I shouldn't say especially, but with entrepreneurial work, when you're taking on a project of your own and starting your own company, the success of it is based on what you're willing to put into it. And when you're running your own business, it's not a 9-to-5 job. I can assure you, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, depending on the nature of your business. So we speak from experience with, I guess, with both sides of these choices. So with another pro with having your own business, obviously there's unlimited earnings potential. And again, same thing can be possible if you have a lucrative commission structure with a company that you have. If you keep selling, you keep earning. The same thing here as an entrepreneur. If you keep growing your business, you keep earning based on the success of that business. Flexibility, obviously you set your own hours to a certain extent. But again, if you want to see that succeed, especially in the beginning, when you're starting out with a new company and it's your own company, it's another saying, you'll see that your first quarter work, you won't see those results until the fourth quarter. So it's the work you put into in the beginning that's really going to help you get to that flexibility area of freedom, where you're setting your own hours, again, depending on the nature of your business. But I see you've got something to say.
I do. I was just going to add in there for flexibility. It's not just flexibility on hours, but you can do flexibility even on like location. One of my favorite stories of Dean here is a couple months ago, he went off to Jamaica and he was sitting on a beach. I don't know if he was sipping Mai Tais, but he was sitting on a beach doing his work and doing it from the comfort of his vacation. And then when he was done, put the laptop away and continued on with the rest of his vacation. And I think that's such an awesome opportunity that most people don't get as an employee, to be able to go out and enjoy their life and do things and experience things and still be able to get work done. Mm-hmm. But when you're an entrepreneur like that, you do have opportunities to enjoy your life while working at the same time. And
again, it's a great example. So it's nice to be flexible when you're in your own business, but it's also, are you still willing to put in the work when you're in Jamaica or when you're, but if you have the ability to run your business from a computer using today's technology, having the flexibility of having your own company, you could work it from pretty much anywhere, whether you're overseas, in your own office at home, or in a coffee shop. That's the one nice thing, that you have that flexibility to do it. And the other freedom that you get is also that creative freedom. You have the opportunity to innovate and implement new ideas, where sometimes you might have to go through to your supervisor, and then your supervisor has to pitch it to the rest of the operations team, or even the executive team, where in this case, you're the executive team. So if you think it's an innovative idea and you implement it, whether it succeeds or fails is based on you. So it's here that saying, the buck stops here. And it couldn't be more true when you're an entrepreneur. I think I would say with this one too, with personal fulfillment. I can speak again, we all can from experience. When you build something from the ground up, the satisfaction that you get when you look at this and it's something of your own, you almost take, it's something you hold near and dear to your heart, because all that work you put into it, when you see it mature and grow, it's like being a proud parent, and seeing your child grow into an adolescent and a teenager, and then they go off to college. So when you get to the point with your own company that it's graduated and it's got its master's degree, and you pretty much can then go to Jamaica and have a Mai Tai or two, if that's what you do, and not have to bring your computer, that's when it gets scalable, and that's kind of the goal you want to get to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoy that aspect of, selling the pros of being an entrepreneur is that dream that everybody has and sees for themselves. It's very easy to envision, how do I want my perfect life to be? How do I want my work to be? How do I want to be enjoying, all the perks of being an entrepreneur? Again, selling the dream is the easy part, but I think, later on we'll kind of get into the negatives of it. But I mean, a lot of these are true, right? I mean, it's you attach your name to that business. You attach your reputation sometimes to the business. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that, fulfillment happens from within when you're creating some of these businesses. And, how many different aspects of the human mind do we get to explore when we're operating a business, right? The creativity, the hard work, the discipline that we have to go through. And a lot of that grind work is not really seen on the other end of it. But again, a lot of it's happening in the background. But the fulfillment that you get from knowing that you're able to hit these certain levels in life, you don't really get to experience sometimes in the average job.
Yeah. And I guess I want to stress again too that we're not pitching one versus the other. So if you're in a traditional job working for a company, and you're doesn't mean that you're not working 110% every time. If that's, you want to succeed and you have set your own goals, as we talked about in the last episode, you're going to give it everything you have anyways. I mean, when I used to have a traditional job, even when I left and I was on vacation, I might not have brought my computer, but I could still check my emails to see if there's anything, and we'd still try and do some work from there too. But it's maybe having that traditional job and going out of country and not having the necessity of bringing your computer is something you want. Whereas, having that business that you want to see flourish and grow, you bring it with you. But I think even as the individual listening and watching this episode, you already know what your goals are, and we're going to just help you get there by taking the steps you need to take, whichever direction that is. But either direction still involves that that blood, sweat, and tears and working. So but all that being said, I guess I want to talk about the cons of being an entrepreneur as well. And I get the first one, and probably one of the most important ones, is the high risk, the financial, the personal, and the professional risks involved when you start your own business, including failure. No one wants to fail. We've talked about that before too. And sometimes, depending on the location, the environment, the product, it's not a guarantee. There's the stats of most small businesses fail within the first 2 years, and it's true. And a lot of those people who started that business didn't go in with it's not because they didn't give it their own. There's other factors outside of that. So recognizing that there is that high risk, and with that there's also the uncertainty, inconsistent income, especially in the early stages. When you start out a new business, especially if you've been in traditional business for a long time and then you step away from it, there's not that guaranteed paycheck coming every 2 weeks. And most business owners a lot of time just keep pouring that money into their company because they want to see that company grow, and may not collect a wage for 1 or 2 years as they're building that. So
yeah. So when we talk about risk, I mean, the stats kind of say that 20% of businesses will fail in the first year. And within 5 years, you're probably going to see at least half of those businesses go to the wayside. And so just knowing that, like, hey, there's real percentages here, and the chances of success is only 50% after 5 years. So, that's a big risk to take on.
For sure. And also the long hours. And again, a lot of traditional jobs have long hours. There's a lot of people that have a traditional offer letter when they sign to work with a company, and their hours may be from 8 to 4:30 or 9 to 5:30, and it's a traditional 8-hour day that they're working. But a lot of those people, and I've seen it in past experiences, where they're all in. They want to see the company succeed because they're also thinking about their own success within that company. And we said that stat earlier in one of our other episodes, that some employees only work as hard as they have to not get fired. That's not going to advance their trajectory within that company. But there's others that work 9 to 5, and they're putting in a lot more than 8 hours. When you take on the role of an entrepreneur and own your own company, you are definitely taking on longer hours and working more than a traditional 8-hour day, especially if you want to see that succeed, knowing the stats that are out there with your own businesses.
But a lot of this goes with vision planning too, right? It's how productive are your hours? Can I visualize how that work-life balance is going to be? Can I even do a business while I do my full-time job? So a lot of these things, I mean, it is in the initial planning of what we're going to be doing.
I'd also add that there are a lot of people out there that go into a new business plan idea with the literal idea of building a business, getting it successful to a point where it is profitable, to the point where it is worth something. And then they either hire people to come in and do the work, or they sell the company as a whole so that they can take that profit to then retire early. So that's where sometimes those long hours, you might work 10, 15 years working, 12, 16, 18-hour days. But then you get to sell your company when you're, in your I don't know, mid to late 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is, and you get to retire early and get to, instead of having that work-life balance for a few years, now you just have life because work's done. So there are lots of people that do it that way as well, and that is a very, it's a tried and true method for people who are looking to just build businesses, sell them, and then use that profit for their lifestyles.
It's a great point, Gail, and I love it. Also, the stress and pressure. There's high levels of responsibility and stress when it comes to running your own business. And the initial financial investment, sometimes there's that need for the startup capital and the ongoing investment of that company's to ensure its success. And I think the lack of it attributes to a lot of the failures, especially in the beginning years as the company's trying to build a solid foundation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people go into building a new business or a company not realizing that beyond that first initial investment, there are going to be investments after investments after investments after investments. You got to hire people, you got to build new products, you got to do all of these things, make a website, buy the URL or whatever it is. There are so many little things that I don't think a lot of people realize until they're in the thick of it. And at that point, you're already in it. So it becomes very stressful as you are trying to navigate all of those expenses that come out.
And an interesting one with this one here when we were doing this and preparing was the limited benefits. In having your own business, a lot of people say, oh, you could just write it off with your company. It's a write-off and everything. But at the end of the day, especially as an entrepreneur, when you have your own business, it may be a write-off, but it's still equity you're taking out of your company to pay for those benefits. So the limited benefits, working traditionally, that company is still, paying for the health insurance or retirement plans. So it could be a con as an entrepreneur as that a cost of doing business, but it's kind of a double-edged sword because it would also be a pro because you could also purchase the benefits and enhance the benefits for you and your family or your shareholders and your employees as your business grows. So, but again, it's just another cost in doing business. So,
and we talk about like the investment, right? There's that time investment. There's the hidden costs. There's capital investments. There's always some sort of investment that's happening when you are an entrepreneur. And the other part is like when you start the entrepreneurial journey, you don't necessarily have employees. So it's almost like a solopreneur start, right? Where you're just kind of doing it by yourself. You have to generate enough revenue. And this is where you kind of have to understand it's a long-term game here, right? Because one is you have to generate your own revenue for yourself. Secondly, you have to start generating revenue for other employees. Thirdly, now you have capital investments and capital expenditures and you need operating money. So there's a lot of funds that are needed. One is you can go outside to the venture capital route and start getting investors into your company, which again, you lose a lot of control over your own business. But if you want to maintain that control over your business, now you're thinking of ways of how to survive to be able to kind of push forward and create revenue streams where you're able to afford this stuff. So that's important to kind of understand. And something I really want to emphasize is, people that are successful in entrepreneurship have a long-term vision. And this is why, again, we're doing the program is so you get to see and evaluate for yourself and just have that conversation and say, okay, hey, when I do the worksheets, what do I enjoy and what do I don't like about this? How can I take a little bit of this and a little bit of that and make something that works well for me? And so, yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Well, it's just so interesting because as you add, and it's like an onion, as you add layers to, entrepreneurial opportunities, there's that isolation, especially in the beginning, because you are on your own typically when you first start out. So, if you don't like being alone, there's definitely some alone time. And if you don't like working alone, that could be a challenge. And also the additional stress. Once you bring in employees, when you feel that stress of having to not only provide a job that's going to provide a salary for that employee, you're taking on that employee, but you're also, depending on what kind of owner you are in your business, you're also taking on the responsibility of their family because you're helping to feed that family and clothe that family. And you want to make sure you're out there doing your job as the owner of that company, that their work is there and you're hiring the right people to go out there and find the work and source the revenue they need to see it grow. So it's really, really important to seek the right people, especially when you're doing partnerships. And that's the last one here. There's always that risk when you go into business. It might be, an idea that two individuals come together and they want to be entrepreneurial. It's a business model that doesn't currently exist. But again, it's a partnership. So there's always that risk of, maybe not starting a company with that most ideal partner. There's unfair workloads. Maybe you have issues delegating responsibilities to each other because, say it's a 50% partnership. There might be different visions for growth and different expectations. So again, another layer or risk to add to that.
As an employee, I think I'm hoping that, if you're watching this and you're an employee, you really get the appreciation for what an employer goes through. And knowing also that you have the capacity inside of you to help entrepreneurs and to really be a lift for entrepreneurs where they could be going through all these different emotions, and vice versa. If you're an employer, how can you help your employees and give them that lift that they need, right? And I think it's that balance of how can we work together here to kind of create these solutions that benefit everybody.
And as a business owner, to have an individual come to me and had an idea that's going to explode the business, and they will, have something, as a business owner, that owner is going to want to, also repay that favor to those that care. So it's always looking for that win-win partnership, whether it's partner to partner or partner to employee. You're still working together as a team, and that's why we talk about it all the time. Relationships are key to success, personally, professionally. There's no other way about it. So there's so many other ways to create equity and build that life that you like or want to create for yourself. Whether it's creating your own business or, as Damon was talking about before, buying, acquiring established businesses. You can do freelancing or consulting work. There's other passive income streams, real estate investments, online ventures, franchising, startups. There's so many opportunities out there. And what we want you to do is just learn that there's several methods and opportunities for you to reach out. And I hope in today's episode, you really got to see both sides of the coin, so to speak. And depending on the route you want to go, there's choices to be made and there's skills to learn. And the good news is we're going to be here with you every step of the way to, help you hone those skills to get to where you want to go, whether you're going to do the traditional route because the opportunities that you want are key, or the other opportunities. So that being said,
I think what the main point we want to tell people today is just to take a look at it yourself and see what fits best for you and your lifestyle. We don't want to persuade anyone to go either way, depending on, our preferences, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we want. It's what's important to you and what's the lifestyle you want to build for yourself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and Dean's going to talk to you a little bit about what to expect coming next.
Thank you, Gail. And yes, that concludes not only this segment on navigating job opportunities and all the steps that brought us to this point, but for those that followed us through that segment, we're going to be switching over back into more that sales model that we've been talking about since we got started. So our next episode is going to bring us to establishing sustainable relationships in sales. One of my favorite topics, and I'm looking forward to that, and we hope you are too. In the meantime, know that we're here. Feel free to reach out anytime, and we're here to support you and help you every step of the way. So until next time, take care, and we'll see you soon.